The large meeting room was full of strange creatures from across the galaxy. Some looked like giant insects. Others had crystal skin that sparkled in the light. A few had metal bodies that clicked and whirred when they moved. All of them were staring at one human man who stood at a small podium. Jake Morrison wore his best dark blue suit, the kind diplomats used for important meetings. His gray hair was neat, and his face showed no fear, even though every alien in the room wanted to punish his people. He had been Earth's voice to the galaxy for 10 years, and today would be his last day doing that job. The creature speaking looked like a tall tree made of blue crystal. Its voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. "The human race has been found guilty," it said. Each word echoed around the room. "You fight too much. You take planets that do not belong to you. You break our peace laws." Jake listened, but did not move. He knew this day would come. For months, the other species had been meeting in secret, planning this moment. Humans had grown too strong too fast, and it scared them. "You must give up your outer colonies," the crystal being continued. "You must let us change your bodies to make you less violent. You must allow our ships to watch over all human worlds, forever." In the back of the room, Captain Lisa Hayes sat with other human observers. She wore her military uniform with pride, even though she knew it made the aliens nervous. Her hands were folded, but inside, she was angry. These creatures wanted to turn humans into pets. The room was quiet now. All the alien species had voted already. The proud bird-like Alterans with their golden feathers. The robot hegemony with their glowing red eyes. The ancient ethereals who looked like floating jellyfish made of light. Every single one had said yes to punishing humanity. Jake stepped forward. His black shoes made small sounds on the smooth floor. "The human delegation has heard your demands," he said. His voice was calm and clear. "We respectfully say no." A wave of shocked sounds filled the room. The insect creatures made clicking noises. The crystal beings rang like broken bells. The robots sparked and buzzed. In 3,000 years, no species had ever said no to the Galactic Council. "You cannot refuse," said a hegemony robot, its voice like grinding metal. "The laws bind all civilized species. If you leave, you will have no friends, no trade, no protection. You will be alone in the dark." Jake smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "We have been alone before. We will manage just fine." He began putting his papers into his briefcase. The other humans in the room stood up too. Dr. Kevin Turner, who had spent years trying to make peace with these aliens, whispered to Jake, "Are we really doing this? Leaving after 300 years? Jake did not look back at the aliens who were now talking loudly among themselves. "They want to put us in a cage, Kevin. Humans do not live well in cages." Captain Hayes felt proud as she watched Jake walk to the door. These aliens thought they were so much better than humans. They called humans violent and dangerous. But humans had never tried to force an entire species to change who they were. The Alteran representative, a large bird with golden eyes, spoke up. "You are making a mistake. The galaxy is dangerous. There are pirates and wars in the outer regions. You need our protection." Jake stopped at the door and turned around one last time. "The galaxy has been dangerous for humans since the day we left Earth. We learned to protect ourselves then. We will learn again now." As the human delegation walked out, the aliens began arguing among themselves. Some thought this was good. Humans were troublemakers, and now they were someone else's problem. Others were worried. Humans were good fighters and smart builders. What if they came back stronger? The crystal being who had spoken first tried to call for order. "The humans will return within days," it said. "They cannot survive without galactic civilization. When they come back begging, we will be generous. We will let them keep their homeworld." But Captain Hayes heard these words as she left, and she almost laughed. These aliens had no idea what they had just done. They thought they were solving a problem. Instead, they had just given humanity the best gift possible: freedom. Outside the council building, Jake stood in the alien city's strange purple sunlight. Other humans were already making phone calls to Earth. sending messages to human colonies preparing for what would come next. Some were excited, others were scared. All of them were ready to follow their leaders into the unknown. "What now?" asked Dr. Turner, looking up at the alien ships flying overhead. "Now we go home," Jake said, "and then we show them what humans can really do when no one is telling us we cannot." The galaxy thought it had solved its human problem. The galaxy was wrong. This was not an ending. This was just the beginning of something much bigger than any of them could imagine. As their ship left the alien world, Jake looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there were new worlds, new friends, and new possibilities. The Galactic Council had tried to make humans smaller. Instead, they had just made the galaxy bigger. 6 months had passed since humans walked out of the Galactic Council meeting. Admiral Rebecca Stone stood on the bridge of her spaceship, watching the last group of civilian ships leave Earth's moon base. The biggest movement of people in human history was almost complete. "That is the final transport from Luna Colony," said Commander Pete Jackson from his control station. "All civilian families have been moved to the new territories." Rebecca nodded as she looked at the screen showing human space. While the alien governments expected humans to come back begging for help within weeks, humans had been very busy instead. They were doing something no one expected. They were moving away from the old galaxy and building something new. Dr. Amy Richardson walked up to the Admiral carrying a computer tablet. She was the chief scientist for this massive project. "The scout ships have good news from the far rim," she said. "We found 17 star systems beyond the Council's control. Some have planets we can live on. Others have materials we need." "Good," Rebecca replied. "What about the alien species out there?" Amy smiled. "The Corvin clans want to be friends with us. They have been fighting off hegemony robot raids for many years. When we destroyed 3 hegemony patrol fleets last month, the Corvins noticed. The human plan was bold and simple. Instead of fighting for their place in the old galactic order, they would create their own new order. The far rim was far away from the major alien powers. Most council species thought the aliens out there were not worth talking to. This made it perfect for humanity's new home. On the planet New Houston, in a distant star system, colony leader Greg Campbell watched huge construction sites being built. The factories that had made humanity's first space empire were being built again, but much bigger this time. And this time, no alien laws would limit what humans could do. "The fusion power plants are working," reported Chief Engineer Maria Santos. "We will have new battleships ready in 2 years." Greg looked out over the busy construction areas where humans worked alongside their new alien friends. The Corvins were strong and good at mining. They brought raw materials and workers. The Skitarii were small and quick, and they knew how to hide ships from enemy sensors. Many smaller alien species that had been ignored or hurt by the major galactic powers wanted to join humanity's growing team. The Corvins looked like large bears with gray fur and intelligent eyes. Their leader, Chief Gorvin, had become Greg's close friend. "Your people build fast," Gorvin said in his deep voice. "My clans have fought the metal robots for 50 years. You beat them in 1 month." "We learned to fight by fighting each other for thousands of years," Greg explained. "When we work together, we are much stronger." The Skitarii were very different. They were small, about half the size of humans, with green skin and big black eyes. They could make their ships invisible to most sensors. Captain Zix of the Skitarii had brought the secrets of stealth technology to the Alliance. "Council species think they know everything," Captain Zix said in her high musical voice. "They never listen to small species like us. But you listen. You make us partners, not servants." Back in the old council space, the major alien powers watched these developments with growing worry. What they had meant as punishment was becoming something far more dangerous. Humanity was building an alternative to their carefully controlled galactic order. The crystal beings called ethereals were the oldest and most powerful council species. They lived for thousands of years and thought they knew everything. But even they had not expected this. Elder Vorth, their leader, spoke to the other council members. The humans were supposed to fail and come back asking for forgiveness, Vorth said, his crystal body dimming with worry. Instead, they are building something that could replace us. Trade was already being affected. Species on the edge of Council space were starting to do business with humanity's new alliance instead. The Far Rim species had resources the Council wanted, but now those resources were going to human colonies instead of Council worlds. Dr. Tony Bennett had made the most important discovery. Working with ethereal refugees who had left Council space, he learned how to make the special crystals needed for faster-than-light communication. Before this, only the Council could make these crystals, which meant they controlled all long-distance communication in the galaxy. This changes everything, Tony explained to the Alliance leaders. We do not need Council communication networks anymore. Our fleets can talk to each other across the galaxy without using their systems. Admiral Stone received reports every day about new species asking to join the Alliance. The Vorthan Republic had been trying to join the Council for centuries, but they were always ignored because they believed in democracy instead of rule by kings or councils. Now they were eager to join humanity's alliance. The Vorthans have 47 worlds and the best defensive technology outside of Council space, reported Commander Jackson. If they join us, our defensive capabilities will increase by 300%. Meanwhile, Captain Lisa Hayes was leading exploration missions into uncharted space. Her ship, the UES Freedom, had discovered something amazing. Ancient ruins on a dead planet contained technology that was thousands of years ahead of even the ethereals. Admiral, you need to see this, Lisa reported from the ruins. We think this is from the progenitors, the species that built the first galactic civilization. The technology here could give us advantages the Council never dreamed of. The Alliance was growing so fast that even humans were surprised. Species that had been enemies for centuries were working together under human leadership. The key was humanity's approach. Instead of trying to control other species, humans treated them as equals and partners. We are not building an empire, President Helen Carter announced to the Alliance Assembly. We are building a family of free species who choose to work together. The old Galactic Council had been built on fear and control. The major species stayed in power by keeping smaller species weak and dependent. Humanity's alliance was built on cooperation and mutual benefit. Every species contributed what they were best at, and every species shared in the benefits. As the first year of the alliance ended, the galaxy was changing. The old council still existed, but many of their members were secretly negotiating with the human alliance. The balance of power was shifting, and everyone could feel it. The galaxy had watched as humanity abandoned the council table. Now they watched in fear as humanity built a better table, one with room for everyone who wanted to sit as equals. 2 years after humanity left the Galactic Council, President Helen Carter stood before the biggest gathering of alien species in Far Rim history. The conference center on New Houston was packed with creatures from 38 different worlds. Today, they would officially create the Far Rim Alliance. Today, we start something new, Helen announced to the crowd. Not just a military agreement, but a new way of thinking about how species can live together. We choose merit over bloodline, innovation over tradition, freedom over control. General Ryan Murphy stood at the side of the room, watching as species after species pledged their support. The bear-like Corvins who had been fighting robot attacks for generations. The small green Skitari, whose home planet had been stripped of resources by Alterran corporations. The Democratic Vorthan Republic, whose government had been ignored by the Council for centuries because they let their people vote for leaders. Intelligence reports say the Council is getting nervous. Colonel Danny Foster whispered to General Murphy. 3 major species have called emergency meetings to discuss the human problem. Murphy nodded grimly. Let them talk. By the time they decide to do something, we will be ready. The alliance had grown faster than anyone expected. Human engineering skills combined with alien knowledge and resources created results that surprised even the optimists. New technologies came from the cooperation between species. Skitari stealth fields worked with human weapons. Corvin mining methods were improved by human machines. Vorthon democracy was adapted to work with multiple species. Dr. Tony Bennett, now head of Alliance Research, made a discovery that would change the balance of power in the galaxy. Working with ethereal refugees who had fled Council space, He found a way to make the rare elements needed for faster-than-light communication without using Council-controlled factories. This changes the entire game, Tony explained to the Alliance. Leadership. We are no longer dependent on Council infrastructure for communication between stars. Our fleets can operate completely on their own. The implications were huge. For thousands of years, the Council had maintained power, partly because they controlled galactic communication networks. If you wanted to send a message faster than light, you had to use their systems and follow their rules. Now humanity's alliance could communicate freely across the galaxy. Meanwhile, on the Council worlds, fear was starting to overcome arrogance. Trade revenues had dropped significantly as far rim species redirected their business to alliance partners. Border systems were leaving the Council, attracted by the alliance's promise of equal representation and shared prosperity. Chancellor. Vextar, the crystal being who had delivered humanity's punishment 2 years ago, called another emergency session. The humans were supposed to wither away and beg to return, he told the assembled alien representatives. Instead, they are building something that threatens everything we have worked to maintain. The golden-feathered Alteran representative spoke for many when she said, "Perhaps we acted too quickly. The humans were difficult partners, but at least they were our partners. Now they are becoming our replacement." But it was too late for regrets. Every day brought news of more species joining the alliance or requesting trade agreements. The Council's carefully maintained order was crumbling as species discovered they had other options. Captain Eddie Clark commanded the exploration ship UES Pioneer. His mission was to map new regions of space beyond Council territory and make contact with unknown species. What he found exceeded all expectations. Alliance Command, we have made contact with the Nexari Collective, Eddie reported from the bridge of his ship. They control 12 star systems and have been fighting ethereal expansion for 2 centuries. They want to join our alliance immediately. The Nexari were unlike any species humans had encountered. They were energy beings who could inhabit both organic and mechanical bodies. Their technology was based on manipulating energy fields rather than solid matter. They had been losing a slow war against ethereal expansion until the alliance offered them hope. "We have waited long for someone to challenge the old powers," said Nexari speaker Zhen, whose current body looked like a humanoid made of flowing light. "Your alliance offers what we thought was impossible, a chance for species like us to stand as equals." Back on New Houston, the alliance's first joint military exercise was taking place. Human ships flew alongside Corvan battlecruisers, Skitarii stealth fighters, and Vorthon defense platforms. The coordination was impressive, but more importantly, it was based on mutual respect rather than domination. "Look at this," General Murphy said to his staff as they watched the exercise. 6 months ago, the Corvans and Vorthons were enemies. The Skitarii had never worked with anyone. Now they fight together like they have been allies for centuries. The secret was humanity's approach to leadership. Instead of imposing human methods on other species, they asked each species what they did best and found ways to combine those strengths. Corvans were natural miners and heavy fighters. Skitarii excelled at reconnaissance and stealth operations. Vorthons were masters of defensive strategy and logistics. Humans coordinated and adapted, finding ways to make the whole greater than the sum of its parts. Dr. Amy Richardson, now the Alliance's head of technology development, had established research centers on 15 different worlds. Each center focused on combining human innovation with local alien expertise. "The breakthrough rate is incredible," she reported to the Alliance Council. "We are making advances in 5 years that took the old Council species centuries to achieve. Cooperation really is more powerful than competition." The most dramatic example was the development of new faster-than-light engines. Human theoretical physics combined with ethereal refugee knowledge, Nexari energy manipulation, and Corvan heavy engineering had produced ships that could travel twice as fast as anything in the galaxy. As the Alliance grew stronger, reports came in from Council space that showed the old order struggling to adapt. Several Council species had split into factions, with some wanting to negotiate with the Alliance while others pushed for military action. The hegemony is building up forces on their border with our territory, reported Alliance Intelligence, Chief Colonel Sarah Martinez. But they have lost 3 major client species in the past month. Their industrial capacity is down 30%. The Council species were learning that power based on control and fear was fragile. When species had alternatives, many chose to leave. The Alliance offered something the Council never had: genuine partnership between equals. President Carter looked out over the Alliance Assembly as representatives from dozens of species worked together on their governing charter. Humans had started this by walking away from a table where they were not wanted. Now they had built a table where everyone was welcome. 6 months ago, most of these species had never worked together, she said to General Murphy. Some had been enemies for generations. Look at them now. The general smiled as he watched a Corvan engineer explaining mining techniques to a Skitarii pilot, while a Vorthon diplomat translated for a newly arrived species. Maybe the Council did us a favor when they kicked us out. We never would have built something this good if we had stayed. The galaxy was watching the Far Rim Alliance with growing concern and growing hope. Concern from the old powers who saw their control slipping away. Hope from the smaller species who finally saw a path to equality and prosperity. Humanity had abandoned the Council table in defiance. Now they were building something the galaxy had never seen before: a truly cooperative galactic civilization. The call that changed everything came on a quiet Tuesday morning in the 3rd year of humanity's exile. Captain Eddie Clark, exploring the edge of known space in his ship UES Pioneer, sent an urgent message that made Admiral Stone drop her coffee cup. Alliance Command, we have found something incredible. Eddie's excited voice crackled through the communication system. It is some kind of massive structure, possibly built by the progenitors. The energy readings are beyond anything we have ever seen. Admiral Stone looked at the data streaming in from Eddie's ship. The structure was bigger than most planets, made of materials that should not exist and putting out enough energy to power an entire star system. This was the discovery of a lifetime. How long until we can get a full research team there? Stone asked her staff. 48 hours for the science ships, replied Commander Jackson. But Admiral, we have a problem. Long-range sensors show Council ships heading for the same location. Stone felt her stomach tighten. She had been expecting this confrontation for months, but not over something this important. The ancient progenitors had built the first galactic civilization millions of years ago before mysteriously disappearing. Any technology they left behind would be worth more than entire star systems. 2 days later, Stone stood on the bridge of the Alliance flagship, looking at the most impressive sight of her career. The progenitor artifact hung in space like a metal moon, covered in patterns that seemed to shift when you looked at them directly. Around it floated the largest space fleets ever assembled in one place. Council fleet count is 212 ships, reported Commander Jackson, including 5 ethereal dreadnoughts and 3 hegemony battle stations. They have us outnumbered more than 2 to 1. Stone studied her own fleet. 80 ships from 6 different species, all newer and better equipped than most Council vessels, but still badly outnumbered. The crews were volunteer veterans who had chosen to follow humanity into exile rather than submit to Council control. Send a message to the Council fleet, Stone ordered. The artifact was discovered in unclaimed space by Alliance vessels. We are not leaving. The reply came from Admiral Vexkoth, an ethereal commander known for his ruthless tactics. Admiral Stone, you are in violation of ancient salvage laws. The ethereal collective claims right of first discovery based on our historical connection to the progenitors. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Stone almost laughed. Historical connection? You mean the fact that you killed most of them in your first galactic war? What followed was the largest space battle in recorded history. The Battle of the Nexus artifact lasted 18 hours, with both sides throwing everything they had into the fight. The Council forces expected their numerical advantage to carry the day, but they had not counted on Alliance tactics that emphasized speed, innovation, and perfect coordination between species. Corvan heavy cruisers are engaging the hegemony. Battle line, reported Tactical Officer Lieutenant Karen Wells. Skitarii stealth fighters have penetrated their rear formations. Forthon defense platforms are holding our center. The Alliance fleet fought like they had trained together for decades instead of years. Corvan ships with their heavy armor and powerful weapons drew enemy fire while Skitarii fighters slipped behind enemy lines to attack weak spots. Human ships coordinated everything, adapting tactics in real time as the battle developed. But the real battle was happening on the artifact itself. Colonel Ben Parker led Alliance ground forces inside the massive structure, trying to understand its purpose while fighting off Council troops who had the same idea. The Corvans are holding the southern access points, Parker reported through bursts of weapons fire. Skitarii infiltration teams have disabled 2 Council landing parties. We still control the primary control centers. Inside the artifact, Dr. Tony Bennett worked frantically with a mixed team of Alliance scientists. The structure's technology was beyond anything they had ever seen, but slowly, they began to understand its purpose. It is not just a weapon or a factory, Bennett explained over the communication system. It is some kind of test. The progenitors built it to judge which species deserved their knowledge. The breakthrough came when Bennett's team managed to activate the artifact's defensive systems. Ancient weapons of unimaginable power swept through space, but somehow they recognized Alliance vessels as friends while treating Council ships as enemies. The artifact's artificial intelligence is responding to our cooperative approach, Bennett reported in amazement. It was waiting for species that showed genuine teamwork and peaceful intentions. The Council's aggressive attack triggered its defenses. The tide of battle turned instantly. Ancient energy beams carved through Council formations while leaving Alliance ships untouched. The artifact itself seemed to come alive, opening new passages for Alliance ground forces while sealing off areas occupied by Council troops. Admiral Fexkoth's flagship, a massive ethereal dreadnought that had terrorized star systems for centuries, took a direct hit from the artifact's main weapon. The ship that had seemed indestructible split in half, its crystal hull shattering like glass. Council fleet is in full retreat, reported Commander Jackson, his voice full of amazement. We count 47 destroyed vessels, 103 disabled. They are abandoning the field. When the smoke cleared, 60% of the Council fleet had been destroyed or captured. The Alliance had lost only 12 ships. More importantly, they now controlled technology that made their previous advantages seem small in comparison. The political earthquake began immediately. Within a week, 17 Council member species formally requested to join the Alliance. Others began quiet negotiations for trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted permanently. The artifact contains manufacturing templates for ships and weapons beyond our current understanding, Dr. Bennett reported to the Alliance leadership. But more importantly, it contains star maps showing the locations of other progenitor sites throughout the galaxy. Captain Clark, still exploring the artifact's vast interior, made daily discoveries that would have been considered impossible just days before. There are entire cities inside this thing, perfectly preserved. Libraries containing the knowledge of 100 extinct civilizations. And Admiral, there are shipyards that can build vessels the size of moons. The implications were staggering. The Alliance had not just won a battle, they had gained access to the accumulated wisdom of the galaxy's first and greatest civilization. The Council species, who had claimed superior ancient heritage for thousands of years, had been revealed as primitive newcomers. Chancellor Vexitar, his crystal form dim with defeat, addressed an almost empty Council chamber. Most member species had already left to negotiate with the Alliance. We wanted to contain the humans, he said to the handful of species that remained loyal. Instead, we created something far more powerful than we ever feared humanity could become alone. On New Houston, President Carter watched the news reports from across the galaxy. Species that had been enemies for millennia were applying to join the Alliance. Former Council worlds were declaring independence and requesting Alliance protection. The old order was crumbling faster than anyone had expected. "Ma'am, we are receiving over 300 applications for Alliance membership," reported her aide, Coordinator Janet Phillips, including requests from inside Council core systems. Carter looked out at the construction sites where humans and Aliens worked together building the infrastructure for a new kind of galactic civilization. 3 years ago, humanity had been forced to choose between submission and exile. Now they were building something that would reshape the galaxy forever. Admiral Stone, still aboard her flagship near the artifact, received a final transmission from the retreating Council fleet. It was from a young ethereal officer whose crystal form flickered with uncertainty. Admiral Stone, my name is Junior Commander Veltar. I speak only for myself, not my government. What you have built with the other species, it gives me hope that things can be different. When this war ends, there will be many of us who want to choose a better path. Stone smiled as she looked at the ancient artifact floating peacefully in space. The progenitors had left it here as a test, waiting for species mature enough to work together instead of fighting for dominance. Humanity and their allies had passed that test. The galaxy had feared what would happen when humanity abandoned the council table. Now they knew something better had taken its place. 5 years after humanity walked out of the Galactic Council meeting, Admiral Rebecca Stone stood in the same chamber where it all began. But everything had changed. The room was full of representatives from over 100 species, and today, they were starting the first session of the Galactic Democratic Assembly. The time of rule by fear and old traditions is over, Stone announced to the packed hall. Today begins the age of cooperation, innovation, and shared success for all species. President Helen Carter, elected for her 3rd term as Alliance leader, watched from the executive gallery as former enemies took their places alongside new friends. The change had been remarkable. Species that had fought wars for thousands of years were now working together on joint colonies, research projects, and exploration missions. The old council powers had not disappeared completely. The hegemony still controlled their core systems, though many of their former subjects had joined the alliance. A few ethereal groups stayed isolated in their ancient territories. Some Alterans still pursued their own selfish goals, but without the system that had once supported them. General Ryan Murphy, now serving as the Assembly's military coordinator, briefed the representatives on their latest achievements. The Nexus Communication Array project is ahead of schedule. We will have instant communication across the entire galaxy within 2 years. The joint colony ships have established 37 new settlements, including our first base outside this galaxy. Dr. Tony Bennett had become famous across the galaxy, leading research teams that combined the best minds from dozens of species. The progenitor technology has opened doors we never imagined, he reported to the Assembly. We are not just improving faster than light travel. We are close to exploring other dimensions of reality. But perhaps the most important change was in how species thought about each other. The Assembly operated on principles of inclusion rather than exclusion, innovation rather than keeping things the same, advancement based on merit rather than which species you belong to. Captain Eddie Clark, now exploring the space between galaxies, sent regular reports that filled the Assembly with wonder and excitement. We have made contact with 3 civilizations from other galaxies, his latest message reported. They are eager to learn about our cooperative model. Apparently, most galaxies are controlled by single-species empires or locked in endless warfare. The discovery that other galaxies existed and could be reached had opened possibilities beyond imagination. The Alliance was no longer just changing their own galaxy. They were becoming an example for the entire universe. As the first Assembly session concluded, Stone reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this point. Humanity's decision to abandon the council table had been seen as an act of rebellion, even desperation. Instead, it had become the catalyst for the greatest transformation in galactic history. In the corridors after the session, she met Chancellor Vextar, one of the few original council leaders who had survived the transition to the new order. His crystal body had grown brighter in recent years, a sign of renewed purpose among his people. Admiral, he said, his chime-like voice carrying genuine respect now. I owe you an apology. We thought we were protecting galactic stability by containing humanity. We did not understand that stability without growth is just another form of death. Stone smiled warmly. The galaxy is big enough for all of us, Chancellor. It always was. Many former Council species had not just joined the Alliance, they had embraced its principles completely. The young ethereal officer who had contacted Stone during the battle at the progenitor artifact, Commander Veltar, now served as the Assembly's ethics coordinator. We spent millennia believing we were superior because we were older, Veltar explained to new Assembly members during orientation. The Alliance taught us that wisdom comes from cooperation, not age. Innovation from diversity, not isolation. The transformation had not been without challenges. Some species struggled to adapt to democratic decision-making after centuries of authoritarian rule. Others had difficulty working with former enemies. But the Alliance had developed programs to help with these transitions, always based on patience and mutual respect. Dr. Amy Richardson, now director of the Assembly's Education Initiative, had established schools on over 200 worlds where young beings from different species learned together. When children grow up as friends, their species cannot be enemies, she explained to visiting digitors. The results were already visible. Young Corvins who had grown up with human children showed none of the suspicion older generations had felt. Skitarii teenagers who had learned alongside Vorthan classmates easily collaborated on projects their parents would have found impossible. On New Houston, now the unofficial capital of the Alliance, the memorial park contained monuments to all the species that had joined their cooperative venture. At the center stood a simple plaque with words that had become famous across the galaxy. Sometimes the greatest courage is walking away from a fight you cannot win, to build something better than what you left behind. President Carter often walked through the park in the evenings, remembering the early days when humanity's future seemed so uncertain. Now human colonies stretched across 3 galaxies, but more importantly, they were part of something much larger than any single species could have achieved alone. "Ma'am, the latest membership applications," said her aide, coordinator Janet Phillips, handing her a thick folder. 47 new species this month, including 3 from the Andromeda Galaxy. Carter smiled as she looked through the applications. Each one told a story of species that had heard about the Alliance and wanted to be part of something that valued cooperation over dominance. The Alliance's reputation was spreading faster than their ships could travel. The economic transformation had been just as dramatic as the political one. Alliance trade routes now carried goods and ideas between galaxies. Technologies that had been jealously guarded secrets were freely shared, leading to innovations that benefited everyone. Captain Lisa Hayes, now an admiral commanding the Alliance's interdimensional exploration fleet, had made the most exciting discovery yet. "We have found evidence of an entire network of connected realities," she reported from her flagship. "The progenitors did not just disappear, they evolved beyond our dimension, and they left guides to help others follow the same path." The implications were staggering. The Alliance was not just governing a galactic civilization. They might be preparing for evolution into something unimaginably greater. Back in the Assembly chambers, representatives were debating their next major project, the construction of a galaxy-spanning network that would allow instant travel between any 2 points in space. The technology existed thanks to progenitor knowledge, but the cooperation required would involve coordinating millions of beings across hundreds of species. "This project will require unprecedented cooperation," explained Chief Engineer Carlos Mendez to the assembled representatives. "Every species will need to contribute their unique strengths, but when it is complete, distance will no longer separate us. We will truly be one galactic family." As Stone prepared to leave the assembly building, she looked up through the transparent dome at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, human ships were still exploring, still discovering, still building bridges between species that had never imagined cooperation was possible. The young human who had first dreamed of traveling to the stars would never have imagined this outcome. Humanity had left Earth as explorers and warriors. They had been kicked out of galactic civilization as troublemakers. Now they were helping to build something that made the old Galactic Council look small and limited. The galaxy no longer watched humanity in fear. They looked to them with hope, partnership, and shared dreams of an unlimited future among the stars. The table that humanity had abandoned had been replaced by something infinitely better. a circle that included everyone willing to sit as equals. And in the vast darkness between galaxies, human voices could be heard calling out to civilizations, not yet discovered. We are the Alliance. We are explorers, builders, and friends. There is room at our table for everyone who comes in peace. The galaxy had watched in fear as humanity abandoned their place at the council table. Now the universe watched in wonder as humanity built a table big enough for everyone,